Okay,
All
tonight
right.
is December 1st, 2022. We are at Studio House in Walbridge, and we're here on to honor World AIDS Day and day also known as Day Without Art.
hmm
And I was wondering if you might tell us your name.
My name is Aida, and my last name is Peery. Peery, not Perry.
Thank you. All right.
hmm
And could you tell us what brings you here tonight?
Well, actually, Angie is a friend of mine, a colleague. Actually, we happen to be working for the same organization called the Street Sense Media newspaper. It's a homeless newspaper here in D.C., and actually, it's an international newspaper. And the newspaper is all over the country. It started off in California, and then it just went to the races, to different cities, where people, really like this paper. They like the reason for the paper. I can't remember the guy's last name, but his name was Bill, I think, who started it in California, who happened to be homeless. And he got tired of begging or seeing people begging. He says, why don't we get them a product and they can put their stories in the newspaper? And that's exactly what we're doing today here at Street Sense Media. And they have one also in Chicago, which is Street Sense Streetwise. They have one in Cincinnati called Street Likewise. They have so many different newspapers, homeless newspapers. So, it gives people confidence, and hopefulness that, they're selling a product. And then it also gives them skills to do so. And then they can move on, save money, hopefully not, find an apartment right off the bat with all these prices out here. It's ridiculous. But it gives them some kind of a sense of hopefulness, where they can get and find resources to maybe find housing or talk about it and have politicians read the newspapers, which a lot of our politicians here in D.C. reads the newspaper.
Mhm.
I did in fact, I think back in 2017, I think, 17, 16, somewhere around there, a few of us artists and vendors, we did interviews with the senators. And mine was Cory Booker. Another a colleague of mine did uh, Maxine Waters. And then we did, another colleague of mine did, I can't think of his name, but he was disgraced because of sexual allegations. He was a senator and he was a comedian. I can't think of his name.
Franken.
Franken, yeah, he did Franken. And so we actually have covers. We had talked about homelessness, how we can try to change and get people off the streets and into homes or in transitional homes, because everybody can't be in a home, you know, they don't know how to live in a home, so the transitional homes is not a bad thing. It just reteaches people how to relive all over again, to be able to live in your own apartment and be responsible while you're in that apartment. I mean, you got some good people out here that, and even by law, and I've had arguments with people in the past, they keep saying about, because of the McKinney Act. The McKinney Act, it says everybody has it. And then whether they put money into the budget or not per state, well, that's another story. But they have to put it in there. And that doesn't have to be a lot of money, but everybody who builds a homes or apartment buildings or dwellings, I think it's like more than 15 or something like that, dwellings or whatever, apartments. So they have to keep 1% or 2% for the low income people. And if you notice, and I notice most people don't notice this, but if you ever walk in these high price high rises, you'll notice that a lot of apartments are empty. And you want to know why? Because they got to keep them empty to bring in somebody who has low income. But they don't want to bring anybody in, and I don't blame them, because there are people here, and throughout the building that are actually paying the market price of $2,800 or whatever. I'm sure they would love to pay, 1/3 of their income, and it'll be a hell of a lot less than $2,800 a month. So, but anyway, Angie, I've been talking to her off and on about Peter Steubings. And what happened was, she says, Aida, Peter showed me this picture of you, the portrait of you. I'm like, get out of here. Nobody know anything about that portrait unless I told them, you know? And so she came back, to the organization because I also worked there too as staff. I'm like, oh, hell no. She had the same picture that I have, but I don't have the portrait. And it's an oil painting of me when back in 1970. So I had to be around 14 or 15 years old at the time. And that was back in New York City, in the summer of New York City. And I happened to be going to a private school because my mom didn't want, well, actually what happened was a teacher strike. Okay. So since it was a teacher strike at public schools, my mother says, you're not staying home. So you're going to go into a private school. So I ended up in downtown community private school in a village. And I was there for about 2 years until almost the closing of the school. I graduated from the school to go on to high school. And the gym teacher, Terry, everybody was just used to drool over this guy because he was so good looking. Oh, was he a gorgeous white boy? I ain't never seen a white man that pretty. My God, that man was beautiful. And even the girls were drooling, Well, anyway, his wife came there one time, or several times, and she came with a couple of their children, 2 girls, little girls. And we used to have our gym on top of the building because it was warm, and when it's nice out and everything. And I kept noticing somebody staring at me, and I'm like, okay, why is she staring at me? But I didn't think nothing of it. So Terry came up to me, our gym teacher. He says, Aida, I want you to meet my wife. And I said, hi, how are you doing? And he said, she wants to paint you. I'm like, paint me? I'm like, no, because, the summer was coming in, and school was going to be out, and I wanted my time during the summer. I want to cut up and act a darn fool like any teenager does, So Marcy told me, she said that she thinks that my structure, my bone structures, everything about me, she would love to do a portrait of me. And she said it would not take my whole summer. She lied. It took up my whole summer. I was so pissed as a teenager. And I used to tell my mom says, Aida, you said you was going to do this portrait. Yeah, but she said it wasn't going to take the whole summer either. But you still go ahead and go to those sittings and do the portrait. What was I mad? Anybody ever asked me to do a sit-in or sit anyway? They're going to either pay me or it's going to be a flat out no, walking away. I don't want to hear nothing. nothing. I didn't even get paid for that. So I did the portrait. She put this dress on me. It was a gorgeous dress, but it was a heavy dress. It literally had glass. If you saw the portrait itself, it was a red dress, a beautiful, beautiful dress, but it was heavy. So of course I had to sit, make me sit. I couldn't stand there in that dress. It literally had glass, mirrors inside the damn dress. I'm like, oh my God, it's a gorgeous dress. So I sat there in this wicker chair as a teenager with a fro, when I should be out there marching and having a good time and doing the penguin and this and that and the other. By the time I got away from her house, I was too beat to do anything. I didn't want to lay down and go to bed, I didn't have the time then when you want to eat, So finally she finished the portrait, close to me going back to school almost. And we went to the art show out in somewhere, I think it was somewhere at Battery Park or some park, I forgot, or somewhere in the village. She was down there. So I said, Mom, let's go down there and see about my portraits. And I said, you going to buy it? She said, it better not be expensive. Boy, was it. Marcy was asking $500. That's back in the 70s. Who in their right mind got $500 for a portrait? In the 1970s. I told my mother, Mom, you got the money. Go ahead, get the portrait. She says, it's a gorgeous portrait, but I have $500. I said, Mom, you're working for the mayor's office and you're designing projects for everybody. You got the money. We live in the expensive Linux apartments that, it takes money to live there, And she's like, I don't have it. So Marcy did a charcoal of me, and I said, okay, I had to accept that. And then she took a picture of it, and she sent, a photo of it, and that was the end of that. So I said, well, I must be sitting in somebody's, wall or his living room or whatever. And the same photograph that I've carried since the 1970s, Angie had it, or Peter Stubbins had one just like it. And I'm just like, whoa, where did you get this from? Because everybody said, that's Aida. I know her. I'm like, what? So that's faith? No, I believe in God. That's God's faith. That's God's work. That was God's work. Wanted me to get involved in this art stuff or whatever. I don't know why. Or even involved with Angie, because Angie, she can get snippy too. Angie is a snipe. She gets a little snippy. I used to like, that little lady, that thin woman, she's pretty, she's a cat claw. I used to say, hi, Angie, and just keep on going, I had no idea she knew all these people in this art world. I had no idea. So I told her, and she went through the staff at Street Sense Media, and everybody says, well, has anybody seen Aida? I'm like, Jesus, what did I do now? They're talking about the portrait. So, yeah, I heard about it. I just told everybody, yep, I heard about it. Nip it in the bud, And then I got sick back in July of the summer. And then all this time, I have never gotten positive for the COVID-19. And then, bam, out of the blue, I got it. But I had other respiratory, conditions going on with me anyway before I was tested positive. And I ended up in the hospital for about 9 or almost 10 days. And everybody thought I wasn't going to make it. Well, that's not everybody. Only some people thought I wasn't going to make it. So everything turned out well. Everything was fine. When I woke up, I was in ICU, and I thought I was just there for a couple of days, and the nurse telling me I would be there for 5 days, And so I ended up going back downstairs with the rest of the population, and I stayed there for 4 days. And boy, was that hard to get out of bed. I had no idea that I was, in the hospital that long. And then everybody's making phone calls, family and this and that. My daughter is really tripping, she's thinking her mom is dead or died, My son is worried. Everybody's worried. So, I'm grateful that, that somebody did get in touch with me about the portrait. Jane, I remember her as a little girl, but we're keeping in touch with each other on Facebook. Her dad just had a birthday, and I would love to meet Terry again. I would love to meet him again, the gym teacher. But I understand that Marcy's mom, who did the actual portrait of me, she's now has Alzheimer's. So now I was going to make some kind of arrangements with Peter Stubbins and Angie Whitehurst about going to New York City to go see her. Now, at first, I didn't want to go see her because if somebody with Alzheimer's, and I had an uncle and an aunt that had that, they don't recognize you. So what's the sense for me to go down there? That's my thought. But Angie and Peter were both saying, just out of respect, because she did this portrait. I'm like, how is that out of respect? First of all, I don't have the portrait. And two, she did a charcoal of me, and she ruined my whole summer in doing it. And I'm like to myself, well, how am I, where's this respect thing coming in? I said, well, and then Angie says to me, she says, Aida, we can get a couple of meals out of him. Okay, great, I'm game. game. You get some of that New York food? Yeah, I'm game. And I know some good places if they still exist, after the 70s, But we can go to the Red Rooster in Harlem, but I know that still exists. And they renovated that whole restaurant. But I don't know if the food is still good or not. Maybe the drinks are better. I don't know. But anyway, I said, okay, we can go down there, no problem. But I would like to see Jane because I haven't seen her since she was a little girl. She was a toddler. And she was just lively, and her sister was lively. I said, wow, there were some happy kids. Yeah, they were really happy. But
Where is the portrait now?
oh, what happened? Jane found out, the daughter, Marcy's daughter, found out through her files that the portrait is in Texas somewhere. And she knows exactly where it is, but she can't give me that information because if she gives me that information and I blurt it out, she can get sued or her mom can get sued or the foundation can get sued. So and she can't go down there. She literally has to hire somebody or like an art reporter or somebody who has a license to do that, to go down there to see the portrait or talk to the owner of the portrait who has the portrait. They don't even know if the owner is alive or not. That's the key. So it could be whoever is, if the owner is still alive, that's hooray, okay? But if the owner is not alive and her family has the estate, it's all legal. Everything is legal. And if you do something wrong, they can sue her foundation or her mom, even though she got Alzheimer's. It's a lot of legal stuff involved in it. You can't, when you sell something to somebody for a high price, a portrait of something or someone, they might not want that information to be known or something of that nature. I don't know. We don't know. They really don't know. It could even be destroyed. I hope not, but you never know. You never know. So, that's strange. From 1970 to 2022, and the new millennium, I still look the same at 14, 15 years old. Oh, my Jesus. And they recognized me that quick. It's unreal, uncanny. I got gray hairs. I've got all these aches and pains. I've had kids, grandkids, and they recognize that portrait.
Wow. That's what brought you here tonight.
Yeah, right. This is the first time me meeting Peter Stubens, impersonally. I've always talked to him on the Facebook, or on the phone, but this is my first time. And boy, when he grabbed me, I thought I was gonna die. I'm like, I can't breathe. He finally let me go. Yeah. So this is why. But Angie, she's sneaky. She didn't tell me. She told me it was an art show. And now I come here and bam. She didn't tell me I had to do an interview. That's sneaky. Let me wait.
Well, here you are sitting down for the whole evening.
Mm-hmm. Sneaky, sneaky, sneaky.
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to leave us with tonight?
No, I just want, hopefully there may be a reporter or somebody who's got legal bounds to get in touch with Jane Burrow or Peter Stubens, and maybe they can find the original portrait and put it in an art museum. That's all I have to say.
That's terrific. All right. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Okay.